I feel like there should be an option. I mean, you can't force someone to be interested.
You should go to an English cram school for children. That's what's trying to go down.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of tied up with status as well, isn't it? And like, I think it would be sad to kind of lose connection to some roots. It's something that's been in Chinese culture for very many years.
可以先自我介绍吗？
好，爸爸是日本人，我妈妈是英国人，在英国出生，但是4岁搬去日本。我在牛津大学念了中文系，但是我已经学过日文，所以我看到一个汉字就有意义。然后毕业了以后来台湾住了2年。Can I go back to like when I was 12, we went to England and everyone was white. I did like history as one of my 3 subjects. It's all like very centered on American and European history. That got me kind of angry. There's this whole world and we're not looking at it from any other perspective. I guess that's partly why I thought maybe I need to like specialize in China. Some of the teachers at my school, when I told them I was applying for Chinese studies, they'd roll their eyes at me or be like, why are you doing that? I mean, in 2009, how can you think that Chinese wasn't going to be useful? That was like peak. Yeah, it was just after the Olympics.
Do you think they would have that same reaction of like French?
Definitely not. I don't think anyone had ever chosen to do Chinese studies from my school before.
Oh, whoa. How did your parents react to that? Like, were they supportive?
My mum is kind of just like, do whatever you want. My dad just stoked I got into Oxford.
What was it like being at Oxford, just the vibe? Everyone has this impression, at least I do, of some sort of Hogwarts.
It was a bit like that. It was kind of crazy. So when I think about some of the stuff that happened, it's like, really? There's a lot of wealthy people. There would be like formal dinners every week, be like 5-course meal and you had to wear your gown. Just the architecture, you can just have a normal event, but just being in one of those buildings is grand.
Yeah.
We had to wear gowns for our exams. I mean, part of that was pretty fun. You know, you feel like you're getting up and like going somewhere important.
Yeah.
I felt like I was treading water, especially the first couple of years. I didn't really do anything outside of studying, just getting all the characters.
Oh, you actually had to learn how to write.
Oh, yeah. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
We did not talk about Taiwan at Oxford.
No Taiwan in Oxford?
No Taiwan. No, our history stopped at kind of like, maybe not post 49. A huge portion of it was classical Chinese. Modern Chinese was like 2 out of 12 modules, I think. When I started, I was like, dude, we're spending so much time studying classical. Like, this is so pointless. Like, it's not a living language. But it became my favorite part of the course. Partly the poetry, like from the Song dynasty, were just like so beautiful. Reading them in the original classical Chinese is just like incomparable to a translation. One character in Chinese can just carry so much meaning and conjure so much, which in English is just like a word. And then right at the very last thing we studied was Zhuangzi. And that was like, oh, I'm so glad I studied Chinese. How they structure it in Chinese, it's very like logical, kind of bring out the paradox. It starts with the river god is like, yeah, I'm like so cool, I'm like full of water and I'm like gushing and I've got so much power. And then he gets to the sea and he's like, oh no, I'm just like, I'm nothing, I'm pathetic, I'm so weak and tiny compared to the sea. But the sea god Ro is like super wise. He's like, don't worry man, from the perspective of the mountains, a tip of an oxen hair is tiny, but from the perspective of the universe, one mountain is just the tip of an oxen hair. Yeah, it was just giving you permission to just be whatever you are. And sometimes you might be bigger and sometimes you might be smaller, and that's the natural pattern of things. But I vibed with that. It's a lot more timeless than the Confucian stuff. Yeah. Confucian philosophy is very easy to apply in politics, society, right? And it's like very good at maintaining order, whereas Zhuangzi is pretty anarchist. To be honest, we didn't get a lot of chance to practice speaking Chinese at Oxford. 大学2年级的时候，我们有去北京，那是我第一次在真的中国人讲中文，很快的发现口音应该很正确，不然他们听不懂。I mean, it was endlessly interesting. I wouldn't necessarily say it was like pleasant. It didn't feel very free. It was like difficult to know what you could do. There didn't really seem to be anything interesting going on culturally. I was a bit confused because like I went to China and was like, where's all this Chinese culture that I've been studying? Like it all felt very secular. So I came to Taiwan and I was like, oh, and I saw like the shrines and temples everywhere and like all the people doing bye-bye and doing qigong in the parks. I'm like, this is it. This is the China that I studied. Although obviously also with of like the Yuanjumin Western Japanese, of course.
Taiwanese people still hold Japan in high esteem.
Yeah, that's very interesting to me because like Japan didn't treat, definitely not the Aboriginal people, well at all. My mum actually suggested it.
She suggested coming here?
Yeah, because she'd been here on the work a few times and she was like, I think you'd quite like Taiwan. How was life? It was amazing. 我来台湾很开心有讲中文的机会。
对啊。
我很喜欢讲中文，不一样的自己会出来。You know, when I'm in Japan, I feel like I need to try and be Japanese. When I'm in England, I feel like I need to try and be English. So in Taiwan, that pressure was off. I was obviously foreign.
Yeah.
And I felt really free here. There's this kind of forgiveness in the air here. In the West, we have a weird relationship with our bodies.
Yeah, it's the way that you move and carry yourself. There's a certain way you do it.
Yeah, and anything else is considered subversive.
Yeah.
I love, like I was in a little park in the city centre last night and just like observing all the people coming and going and just like businessmen in their suits still like coming to do a bit of like light qigong, girl like hanging from the monkey bars, one woman doing some crazy interpretive contemporary dance, and like no one cares, it's chill. In the UK, unless you're walking your dog, like you can't just be in a public space.
Yeah.
British people don't really know how to chill. They just they just drink. I think maybe in England they see someone like me doing qigong and it looks pretty like magical. People are probably a bit freaked out. They're like, who's this person like practicing witchcraft? I'm just restoring the flow of qi.
Like, no, just go drink a pint, please.
Yeah, yeah, none of that. I got told off for dancing at a station once in Japan. And it was like this huge, great big square with no one on it. Just had my headphones on.
Yeah.
And this guy like walked from all the way across the other side of the square to be like, you can't dance here. The people who own this building say you can't dance here.
Yeah.
Whereas here, like Chiang Kai-shek,
everyone's
practicing dancing. And even though Taiwan's very busy, there is an undertone of the Dao, Longshansi.
You love going to Longshan.
I love going to Longshansi. Yeah, every time I've been, there's like people chanting. It feels like a very alive temple. And the offering, just like aesthetically, like all the orchids.
Yeah, quite colorful, that one in particular.
Yeah, which is very different from Japanese temples, which are just like tatami floors, dark. Yeah, and I like how it's just part of culture, like, and you can just go for like a little bye-bye, whereas in England, churches, you like go to a service and it's very formal.
It's an event.
And it's like indoors. I mean, that's like a prejudice that I had when I first came here. It was like, oh, these people are like really superstitious. Like, don't hang your clothes out at night because the ghosts will come and like put them on. Like,
I didn't know that, really?
Now I think that's kind of cool. Connecting with your ancestry is like the repetition of the ritual brings the gods closer. You know, it's not like this god that's like far away and like all high and mighty. It's like the gods that are just here who also like to drink beer and eat cookies.
Yeah, and watch strippers. You can be in public in Taiwan.
I mean, people do stare at us. But yeah, yesterday I was just in Danshenling Gongyuan, lying on the grass, and then I just sensed something, and I looked up and there was a guy sitting like, literally just like here behind me, just staring at me like, and even when I looked at him, he like wouldn't look away. Yeah, it wasn't like scary. It was just strange.
Kind of uncomfortable.
Yeah, uncomfortable and like, yeah, I've been followed here and Japan. Not in England.
I guess you also said before that you had an interesting experience with a Taiwanese guy.
So we met when he had a girlfriend, but then the next time I saw him, he was like, I've broken up with my girlfriend. And you know, I thought he was cool, but I wasn't attracted to him. And then he was like just coming over to my place and like taking me places. And I was like, you know, that it's cool. I'm like happy to hang out. But there came a point where I was like, oh wait, does he think we're dating? I think it's only coming back this time actually, having been in English culture for like 5 years, that I've noticed there are certain kind of cultural behaviors that imply a certain type of relationship. In Taiwan, it seems to be very much like acts of service. If you like someone, you like go out of your way to like help them with stuff. When there was this dynamic, I would feel no attraction, but they would be very interested and kind of pursue me. And I don't know if it was to do with my foreignness.
Just foreign enough.
刚好. The foreignness.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this continued for like a few months, where it was a bit ambiguous.
That is interesting because here there is the gaobai, but maybe you thought it's like, oh, you're Western, you're more open, you don't need the gaobai.
Yeah, I mean, it ended because I left the country.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, it was very, I literally fled. And yeah, like intercultural relationships, it's not something to just embark upon lightly. It's a lifelong kind of trying to figure out, and you've got to be able to communicate. Obviously my parents, what I do see even now in their relationship is like so many instances where I can see they don't understand each other. It's so frustrating to observe. I mean, initially when I left in 2015, it was more, I guess there just comes a point where you're like, am I gonna like create the life that I need in order to reside here and like invest into the culture and community? Like Taiwanese people are super supportive. Like you see one Taiwanese person and they're actually like part of a huge web of Taiwanese people. And whereas you come here as a foreigner and it's like, if something goes wrong, you don't have family here. Yeah, you can make good friends, but I feel like you're still ultimately alone.
For sure.
Yeah,
try not to think about
nothing's gonna unless I could find a way that I could like really contribute to Taiwanese society. I felt like I didn't have much of a right to be here. Yeah. There was definitely a discomfort with this kind of two-tier wage system, and it's not my country, and yet I'm having a better standard of living than the local people. Like that just felt a little like colonial. I don't know, it's just kind of a fact of the world, isn't it? English is dominant language globally, and
they especially want to learn it here more so than other places. Like Japan doesn't care about learning English at all. They don't care at all.
No, Japanese people can't speak English, but I guess it matters more for Taiwan. Yeah, they need to like prove themselves in the global stage and like be seen and yeah, be taken seriously. And that again is like quite uncomfortable for me, because it's like, why can't they be respected as a nation just for being exactly what they are and like for all the assets that they have anyway, without having to like conform to Western standards?
There has been this trend in Taiwanese education to partially move away from classical Chinese. Potentially it's a flashpoint now because they're trying to create distance from the mainland.
But are the communists into classical Chinese? They study like the simplified characters. I think studying classical Chinese for me helped with connecting more viscerally with the characters themselves, because each character carries, I think, maybe more meaning in classical Chinese. So you kind of have to sort of go a bit deeper into like, what does this character actually encapsulate? What are they trying to convey with this one character? Because it's a whole world perspective. Yeah, and it never stops. Like there's always more layers. I feel like there should be an option. I mean, you can't force someone to be interested.
You should go to an English cram school for children. That's what's trying to go down.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of tied up with status as well, isn't it? And like, I think it would be sad to kind of lose connection to some roots. It's something that's been in Chinese culture for very many years. Like from what I experienced, nothing is pure. Everything always gets mixed. Taiwanese culture encapsulates what Chinese culture is really about. Taiwan is this beautiful, magical place that I can come and visit.